Okay, so it looks like I'm live. I just need to find the link to it, which is always a struggle. That's always the struggle when I go live. Okay, here it is. I'm currently live. Also, my window is open. So, ooh, gotta turn off the sound on my computer because that's gross. My windows are open, so it might be a little loud, but it's so hot in my room, and I really I can't do it without the windows open, so. Okay, I'm gonna quickly put Olaf somewhere else. I feel like my thing is like blurry. Is that better? I think that's much better actually. Yeah, there was something on my iPhone screen. So I'm gonna quickly post the link to this live show on my Twitter. That's always like the first thing that needs to happen. So we're gonna do it right now before we talk about anything else. Hashtag we read hard tweet. Okay, so the link is officially up, which means that people should be coming in. I think there's 2 people currently watching, which is awesome. Hey, did my makeup just for you guys. Then I'm just gonna retweet it onto my actual Twitter account, and then we are good. This is always like a 12-step process to even do a live show, so I'm sorry, bear with me. It takes forever, I know. Okay, retweeting. I feel like I only retweet onto like my actual Twitter page just in hopes that someone who isn't following my Shakespeare account like actually, you know, might somehow join in on our Shakespeare chats. So that I don't think that's ever actually happened, but I mean, I can dream. It'd be so cool. Okay, so I have my computer set up. Okay, so I don't know who's watching. Hello to everyone who's watching. We had basically 2 months to read this play. And this is a play that's completely new to me. I had never read it before. I was supposed to read it for my Shakespeare class. Didn't end up happening because we took too long on Hamlet. So, and my teacher was like, I don't want to end it off on like a tragedy, so we're gonna do Much Ado About Nothing. So that's how it all happened. That's why I never end up... I love how when in a live show, I can't edit that out. But that's how we ended up not even reading Othello. So here it is. I did tab it up like halfway through, and then I got to a point where I'm like, I really need to listen to someone reading this to me. Because like I was understanding it, but it was taking so long for me to read it because for some reason I have 1 brain cell, so I can't read this all the way through. Like for the other plays, I was fine. Like I've read Hamlet all the way through by myself and I'm fine. Same with Much Ado About Nothing. Same with Romeo and Juliet. But for some reason, this play was just going over my head in certain parts, but I think that I have a reason for that, and it's not necessarily me, it was the play. So yeah, that's fun. I gave this about a 3-star on Goodreads. I think that it's more like a 3.5. I kind of went back and forth between 4-star and 3-star. So, you know, it was kind of, I just didn't really know how to rate this one because there were certain parts I really loved, and then there were certain parts that I was just kind of like, I'm not loving this. So it was really, really difficult to rate. It was kind of like when I read Richard III and Julius Caesar, because there were aspects of those plays that I really loved, and then there were aspects that I just did not enjoy. So it was difficult because I feel like they're so different than a Hamlet or a Much Ado About Nothing or a Romeo and Juliet or A Midsummer Night's Dream or whatever. Like those are plays that I really love. They're very entertaining to me. And I don't know, it's just, this play was just so different than all of that. And I don't know. I guess it was just different than what I expected the play to be. And I don't know if anyone else had that experience with this play, that it ended up being different than what, I don't know, because I don't know, maybe I was just expecting something different from it, even though I kind of knew going into the play, like, what it was about, what was going to happen, at least the general idea of Othello, but maybe I don't know, maybe my mind, my imagination ran away and came up with something else, and I'm like, this is what it's gonna be like, and it ended up not being like that. So I don't know. And also I felt like, and I don't know, like, this play, I don't want to be like negative towards it, because I did really enjoy it. I don't want to, like, towards the end I was like, ooh, I could not stop. I was like really like enraptured. Is that the word? I don't know if that's a word, but I was really interested in like the ending of this play. It was so like, things were happening left and right, so that was really exciting. But I feel like with other plays, I keep mentioning all the other plays I really love by Shakespeare, like, they're all really quotable, and they have so many good lines, they're beautifully written, and then I felt like this play wasn't necessarily beautifully written in any sort of way. It was just a play. It wasn't like special, like anyone could have written this. And I think that was my problem with Othello, is that it just felt really basic, and it didn't feel like I was getting anything different, which is normally what I feel like when I read Shakespeare. Like, but that, I guess that kind of, well, okay, Richard III was definitely different. It was something that I'd never read before, like, and it was so like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. But then with Julius Caesar, I guess maybe because Julius Caesar's a history play, that it didn't feel, special or different, so it's just kind of like meh. But this one isn't a history play, it's a tragedy, and I tend to like the tragedies a lot, but I didn't really like this tragedy, and maybe I feel like part of it is because so many of the characters are like super racist. So maybe that was the like part of me that was like, oh, I can't, it's like so hard for me to enjoy something when it's like such overt racism. And I'm just like, really, do we need to keep bringing up the fact that Othello is black? Like, I get it, he's black, but it's just like, they were bringing it up in such like a racist way, and like I feel like, I think another part of it is like, I couldn't tell, maybe, like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it, like, why did Iago want to ruin Othello's life? Is it because he's black? I'm like, is the entire villain's reasoning for being a villain is because he's racist? Like, I don't know. It's just like, and Iago wasn't even that interesting of a character, and I was really expecting him to be interesting and for him to be like a layered, complex villain, and he was just kind of evil. In like, to be evil, but there was no complexity to it. There was no like layers to Iago. He was just like two-faced, and it wasn't fun. I don't know. Like, maybe, I feel like maybe if I watched a movie version of Othello, I might like it, or if I saw a play, like, if I actually saw it live, I might like it. But reading it, and I did listen to the audiobook, so I read the first half of it just myself, and then the end half of it I read as an audiobook. And I just didn't like it. I don't know. If you guys are on, tell me your thoughts. It's, I don't know. It's so hard to put my thoughts into like actual words. So let me know what you guys thought of this play. I've never read it before, so these are all just very fresh, like, first read thoughts. I feel like maybe if I read it a few more times, I might have different opinions or thoughts about it, but I don't know. So, I mean, hold on. Does this work? Sorry. Shoot. Okay, I just posted something in the chat just to make sure that it works. That sounds so lame. I'm just, okay. So, I did tab a bit of the play in the beginning, and there were quite a few lines that I thought were kind of funny, or at least like were like, oh, I see what he's doing there, you know what I mean? There were a lot of lines in Act 1, Scene 1 that Iago says, like, heaven is my judge, not I for love and duty. I underlined that part. And then I underlined, for when my outward action doth demonstrate the native act and figure of my heart, which I think is kind of a good line. There's a lot of like kind of hitting you over the head of Iago's a bad guy. You know what I mean? It's a lot of like, you know, very obvious, not very subtle, like, I'm a villain. And then I underlined, but I will wear my heart upon my sleeve. And then I underlined, I am not what I am, which I actually really like those lines. I think they're really interesting, even though they're like super like, I'm deceptive and I'm not even gonna be subtle about it. But then everyone, which is so annoying because he makes it so clear that he is not to be trusted, you know, he's a bad guy, whatever, but everyone is like suddenly confused about him being a bad guy. I don't know, it's just like, why? I don't understand it at all. I also underlined poison his delight, which I kind of thought was a cool way of putting it. I also really liked, though that his joy be joy, yet throw such chances of vexation on it, as it may lose some color. You know, there's just some really interesting lines. I made Iago's parts that I really liked dark purple, so I kind of felt like that was kind of like an evil looking color. It's like the only evil color in the pack, so I'm like, okay, a dark purple, which I think is kind of spooky. It reminds me of Maleficent for some reason. I really liked this conversation between I can never say his name out loud. Like, I was reading it to myself out loud, and I could never say his name. Brabantio? I don't know. But between him and Iago, when he's like, thou art a villain, and Iago says, you are a senator, which I thought was kind of funny. So yeah, that was a kind of interesting little line that I underlined. I also underlined, let's see. Are they married? Thank you, truly. I'm trying to find some other good quotes that I underlined. Oh, I did talk a little bit in my notes in, like, you know, the margins, whatever, about, there's a lot of talk about, like, white purity in this play of, like, you know, Othello, like, defiling Desdemona's, like, white purity, and it's so much of it, it's just like, damned as thou art, thou hast enchanted her. There was a part where I was like, oof. Whether a maid so tender, fair, and happy, so opposite to marriage that she shunned the wealthy curled darlings of our nation, would ever have to incur a general mock, blah, blah, blah. Oh, here we go. That thou hast practiced on her with foul charms, abused her delicate youth. These are the lines that I wrote oof next to. Lay hold upon him. If he do resist, subdue him at his peril. I'm like, ooh, that's not good. Some violence. And especially since it's pretty much racially motivated violence. I'm like, oof. Okay. Is there anything else in here? Let's see. I think that any mention, or like any of Othello's stuff is in blue, I'm pretty sure. But I did think it was really interesting. There's a lot of times where Othello is mentioned as Valiant, like Valiant Moor, Valiant Othello. That happens quite a lot throughout the play, especially in scene 3 when the senator and the duke are talking about Othello, and a lot of the times people are like, oh yeah, Othello, he's a cool guy, he's good, he's, you know, whatever, but then like Iago's like hell-bent on making it seem like Othello is like a bad dude, which, I mean, that's not super surprising from Iago, because Iago's kind of a shitty person, but and it seems like Othello is a pretty good guy, you know, throughout at least the beginning of the play, right? Like, we're supposed to be like, cool, like Othello's cool. And then pretty quickly Iago's able to convince him that somehow his wife is cheating on him, when that's like never been something that he would have suspected, which is super strange. Like, why would he believe Iago about this? I don't know. Like, to me, I feel like it was never it never seemed clear that Iago and Othello were like trusted friends or anything like that. I mean, it was kind of mentioned, I think, a few times, but I never really saw any sort of proof of that. It was all just like told to us, and it was never actually shown, so it's really hard for me to believe that they were friends. But I mean, maybe Iago's friends with just everybody, and that's how he gets away with stuff. I don't know. Also, how old is Iago? Like, when I was listening to the recording of the audiobook, Iago sounded really, really old. Like, not really, really old, but like in his like 60s or 70s old. And I'm just like, why is this old ass dude getting into all this drama with these people? Like, is it because he has a lot of time on his hands? Like, why is this even a thing that he feels the need to do? So random. So I'm like, how old is Iago, first of all? Which, I mean, maybe that's not super important to the plot of the play, but to me it's super important. Sorry, I can't even put my stupid sunglasses on my head. But I just, like, I don't like Iago. Which, I mean, I guess is the point, because he is the villain, so you're not supposed to like him. But I feel like he's not even good for, like, I hate to love him, you know what I mean? Like, I like a lot of villains. I'm a total villain kind of person. So it's just kind of like, how did Shakespeare, I feel like this is such a swing and a miss for Shakespeare. Not that I think that everything he writes is perfect, or that I'm expecting it to be perfect, because I'm not. But I just felt like it was such a swing and a miss. So yeah, that's a lot of my thoughts on Othello. I didn't get to watch any of the movies or anything. Also, I'm pretty sure only one person is watching, and I think that's me. So yeah, hopefully some people will come onto my live chat, but you never know. I'm gonna retweet it again just so I make sure that everyone knows. So yeah, so far I've talked basically about all of my thoughts on Othello. I don't know what else to say about it, really. I guess I can find some more lines that I want to talk about. Let's see. I think it's really interesting the way that Desdemona is characterized, mostly because, I don't know, I guess it's just my preconceived notions about her as a character. Like, I don't know, I guess going into this I thought she would be a little different, but, you know, whatever. I did think it was interesting how she was characterized, especially by her father. He says, a maiden never bold, of spirit so still and quiet that her motion blushed at herself, and she, in spite of nature, of years of country, credit, everything, to fall in love with what she feared to look on. Which is, like, that's interesting. I don't know, maybe it's just because he doesn't really know his daughter like he thinks he does. I think that that's kind of interesting, their dynamic as father and daughter, where there's a lot of tension between them. She seems kind of annoyed by her dad a lot, which I think is actually kind of I don't know, is that kind of like a theme in Shakespeare where, you know, I don't know, like, I guess it's kind of a lot of the daughters in Shakespeare plays have kind of a little strained relationships with their fathers. I don't know, maybe it's like a daddy-ishy thing, probably not, I don't know. I'm just talking now because I think only one other person is watching, so, or two other people, excuse me. But I just thought it was so interesting the way that Desdemona's father, like, gets so up in arms about this relationship, and he doesn't seem to really know his daughter like he thinks he knows his daughter, which I guess really is a running theme throughout most Shakespeare plays. Like, Juliet's father doesn't really know her that well. I think that Ophelia and her father have actually a pretty good relationship, surprisingly. Not that he's great, but they seem to have a pretty good relationship, fairly, I think. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to see if I can find any other quotes, because I've mostly talked about how I feel about this play, which is mostly meh, I would say. It's, you know, it's pretty indicative of a 3.5 stars. I think that it's a pretty fair rating, at least in my eyes. I don't know. I mean, I want to know if this is anyone's favorite play, because I would be really interested in knowing, because it's definitely not mine. I think I would reread it, though. I think I would, at some point, either reread it or re-listen to the audiobook. Also, sorry if it gets super loud. I'm so sorry, because I have to have the windows open. It's so hot in here otherwise. Let's see. I really did like these lines right here. This is Act 1, Scene 3. Lines 183 to like 186-ish. She gave me for my pains a world of sighs. She swore in faith 'twas strange, 'twas passing strange, 'twas pitiful, 'twas wondrous pitiful. I don't know, I really like that, like, repetition, and, like, I don't know, it just sounds nice to me. Oh, let's see, what's this? I don't know what the orange tabs are. Oh, I did really like this aside that Desdemona says in Act 2, Scene 1, around 137-ish. She says, I am not merry, but I do beguile the things I am by seeming otherwise, which I thought was super interesting. Like how she's like, she's not super happy, but she can kind of like, you know, I don't know, like make it seem like she is. Hi, Carrie. I know, I've just been talking about Othello for the past almost 30 minutes. A lot of things that I've said, and I'm just kind of going through a lot of the quotes that I marked up in my copy, because so I read the physical copy about halfway through, and then I switched over to the audiobook, and I was listening to it so fast that I just like couldn't really, you know, tab it or anything. So I only have the first half tabbed up until like around the end of Act 3, or like the middle of Act 3. So yeah, I've just been basically talking about like, I gave Othello a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So, not my favorite. But I did think that it was interesting towards the end. I thought that that was probably my favorite part, was anywhere in Act 5. Mostly because it was interesting. Also, I kind of hate most of the characters in this play. The majority of them I just do not like. I really don't like Iago as a villain. It doesn't make sense. I don't know why he wants to, like, I don't know. Oh, that's such an interesting question. I don't know. Othello's kind of a difficult one to either say. I feel like in the first half he's a protagonist, and then in the end half he's not. He's like more of an antagonist. So I don't know, would that be like, I wouldn't say he's an anti-hero because I don't necessarily root for him. But, oh, I don't know. Does he like turn into, I guess he could be like, instead of like a hero's journey, it's like a hero's journey into being a villain. I don't know, like, I guess that would be it. Because I feel like in the first half, Othello's, like, a lot of people talk fairly highly about him, at least. You know, they call him valiant and stuff like that. And he seems to be a pretty good guy, at least from what we're told. But then he is pretty quick to turn jealous and violent, which is, you know... Yes. Basically that. The fuckboy killed his wife on another man's word. And it just bothered me so much that he was so easily swayed into believing that Desdemona would cheat on him. Like, really? Like, they seem to have a pretty good relationship. At least, like, maybe I misinterpreted it. I don't know. But it seemed like they had a pretty good relationship up until then. Like, they seemed to be in love. It seemed to be a good thing. And so I don't know why it turned so violent and awful so fast. And I was talking about this earlier, but, like, I feel like we're only told that Iago and Othello are friends or close friends. I don't know. But it never seems that way. But maybe it's because we're never really shown it. Like, I never feel like we actually see Othello and Iago being friends. We're just told that they are. I don't know. Like, maybe I read it wrong. I don't know. That's the thing about me reading this for the first time, is that I have no idea. Also, sorry, I mentioned this a few times, but I have my windows open, so it's gonna be loud. Also, my dog is barking. I just thought that they had a good relationship too. Yes, exactly. In the beginning, I was rooting for them, and I wanted them to succeed, and I knew the plot of this play before going into it, and still I was like, Othello can't really believe this. Really? Like, is he really gonna believe this? Yes. I was just going to say that. Oh my god, he took the words out of my mouth, that the parrot from Aladdin called Iago is more evil than this Iago. I don't know how that happened. Thank you, Disney, for making Iago actually evil. Like, I'm so disappointed by that character in this play, because I don't know, maybe I just had too high of expectations, whatever, but he was just not cutting it for me. And I don't know, I mentioned this a little earlier, that, like, yes, that he has everyone else do his dirty work for him, but I mentioned this and I'm like, he's not complex enough to be, like, an interesting villain. Like, I'm fine with villains being evil just to be evil, but they have to have some sort of complexity to their character, and Iago does not have that. He is not complex at all. I don't even really understand him enough for me to, like, respect him as a villain, which I kind of need to, you know? Like, I feel like with this play, you kind of need to almost root for Iago, or at least be kind of like, ooh, I'm really interested in seeing how this turns out, but I don't, like, I have no emotion over what Iago is planning, and I also don't really understand why he was doing it. Maybe I was just, like, on some other planet in the beginning of the play. He probably explained it, but my one brain cell wasn't there, so... Right, I think that is probably why we don't think he's super evil, because he didn't do anything. Like, all he did was just kind of like, maybe this happened, I don't know, maybe. And it's like, then I guess everyone else just fills in the blanks and is like, I don't, maybe it's like commentary on how people and their imaginations will just do any, you know, I don't know. It's gotta mean something. At least I think it has to. And it's not enough for me to really enjoy him as a villain. I wish I did, because I love villain characters. But I don't know. It just like, I don't know. It just wasn't a home run for me in that department. And really, I don't know. Like, were there parts I liked? Yeah. I also really was annoyed that there were so many, like, parts of this play that could have totally been cut out because they didn't mean anything to the plot. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. Who's my favorite Shakespeare villain? I feel like my favorite Shakespeare villain isn't even supposed to be a villain. I mean, I guess he can kind of be a villain, right? Like Claudio. Claudio's kind of a villain, right? We can call him a villain. Even though technically everything ends up happy for him in the end, it's all good, I feel like he's 100% a villain. And I think it's especially because I am a huge fan of Much Ado About Nothing. Nothing Much to Do. God, I'm a huge fan of Nothing Much to Do. And the sequel to that, which is Lovely Little Losers, he's in it for a little bit. And I hate him so much because he's not with Hero anymore. And he's with this other chick that he's just flaunting around and being all awkward and weird. And, you know, oh, I hate him. I hate Claudio so much. Yeah, he's my favorite Shakespeare villain, even though I don't know, did Shakespeare intend for Claudio to be a villain? I don't think so. But he's the best villain in that play, and I think he's my favorite one out of anybody. Also, well, no, he's my favorite villain because I love to hate him, but I think also Juliet's dad is another villain of mine that I love to hate, but not even in a fun way. It's more like I just really hate him because he's such an asshole, and I literally want to like shake Juliet's dad and be like, listen to Juliet and stop being such an asshole, like who cares? Ugh, that pisses me off. That's why I think we're gonna do Romeo and Juliet in April. I'm counting on it because I did buy myself a copy of Romeo and Juliet, which I'm super excited about. But yeah, I think that my favorite Shakespeare villain has to be Claudio because I really hate him. It's an issue. Yeah, Claudio can go die in a fire. I know, I have so many thoughts on Romeo and Juliet. I feel like this is definitely a play that I can talk for like actual hours about. And I think, you know, obviously on Twitter, I'm always talking about Romeo and Juliet, so yes, I watched Jules and Monty for the first time like a month ago, and I loved it so much. I thought it was so interesting. I'm gonna talk about that web series so much more in depth when we get to it next month. But oh my god, I loved how they like blended in the Shakespeare with like actual, like, you know, with modern, like, because I feel like in Nothing Much to Do they very rarely use like any actual quotes from the play, but in Jules and Monty they did, and it worked so beautifully. And I don't know, I loved all the actors in it. They were so good, and it was so like low budge, and I loved it. Perfect. Yeah, I hated Iago too. He was just, I don't know. I mean, like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, okay, maybe I'm being too hard on him, but I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Iago. I did talk about it a little bit, how I'm like, I really don't understand why he's like targeting Othello specifically. But then I feel like, I think that there was like a line where he's kind of like, either way, like, I feel like it was like either way, if either Othello or anyone else's life gets like ruined because of this, then it's great. And I'm just like, why? But I really want to know why he targeted Othello in the first place. Like, was it because racism, or was there a different reason? Did I miss the reason why he targeted Othello personally? I think I might have missed that. It's probably somewhere in the first act, but I just missed it. I don't know. Maybe I missed it somewhere else in the play, but yeah, I don't understand Iago's motives. Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out if he had taken the position from Cassio or Iago. I think I was really confused at that part, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So that I think that's why. I think you're right, because I do remember him talking about that, but for some reason, I thought that Cassio was talking about it, and not Iago. I don't know where I don't know. Maybe, I think I mixed up their names in the beginning, or I don't know. Like I said, I was reading this physically first. I feel like if I had listened to the audiobook from the beginning, I would have like been, oh, I get it, you know? But I was reading it physically, and I tried reading it out loud, but I have the worst Shakespeare reading voice, the worst, because I never know how to read it. I'm just really bad at it. I can kind of do Hamlet a little bit, but I can't do anything else. So, though I did do really well at reading Romeo and Juliet in freshman year, because my teacher had me read it twice. Anyway, okay. Now we're clear, it's the job position. Okay, that makes more sense. And I feel like it's a little far to be like, I'm going... That just seems awful. Like, that just seems like going from 0 to 60 of like, oh, he stole this job position I really wanted. Now I'm going to have him kill his wife. Great. We're all great here. We're all on the same page. I'm gonna have him kill his wife, and then he might kill himself. And you know, a few other people might be killed. Who cares? I lost out on a job. Great. Oh, thank you. I love my little Funkos. They're so cute. But yeah, seems a little, but you know what? I think that that's kind of like, that sort of, you know, thing kind of happens a lot in Shakespeare plays, is that, you know, overreaction of like, this minor thing happened to me, now let's kill everybody. And I think that, you know, I read a few opinions on it, like being like, this is kind of like the typical Shakespeare where like, you know, there's so many miscommunications and everyone dies, you know. Yes. Oh, Romeo and Juliet. You're right, Carrie. Prime example of this. Oh my gosh. So many miscommunications, so many like, does not matter at all, but now we're just gonna kill people, which is great, you know, fun. But I do want to say that I contest the fact that this is, the genre of this is tragedy. I mean, I understand that like back in the day, like the genres were like, tragedy was like where people die, and then comedy doesn't mean funny, it just means like happy. But this is not a tragedy. Like, I think there's parts of it that are a tragedy, but at the same time, I'm just like, really? No. I wasn't that sad about it. But I understand that it's not meant to be like tragedy equals sad. I think that someone's knocking on my door. I can't tell. No one likes to knock properly in this household. Oh no, they're asking the dog to go out. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know, like, I feel like this is such a weird play to, like, put into, like, a singular genre. Not even because it fits into many genres, just because I'm, like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I just didn't like the play, so I'm just kind of, like, meh about it. I don't know. I just didn't feel like this was super tragical? Is that a word? But probably because I just didn't feel any emotional reaction towards any of them dying. You know, I don't know. I don't think it was Shakespeare's best work. Oh, tragic. You're right. I think that that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't have any strong feelings for this besides the fact that I'm like, I didn't like certain aspects of it. And it was just like, I don't know. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I was like, ooh, interesting. Yeah, I think that that was probably the most interesting aspect of the play, is that Othello was black and Desdemona's white. And, you know, that's like a huge deal back in that time. And I mean, even from then on, it's still a pretty big deal. I think that that was definitely one of the most interesting parts in it. A lot of racism in the play. I think I mentioned this in the very, very beginning of the live show, that I think that that's partly why it was hard for me to really enjoy it so much, because there's so much overt racism. But I get it. It makes sense, but at the same time, just wasn't super enjoyable to read that constantly. I think my least favorite parts of the book were all of the parts where certain things, like, there's a lot of political things or like war related things that would come up that didn't really seem to matter too much to the play. Like, I understand that like Othello and all of them, they have like war positions in war and stuff like that, but it just went a little too deep into like that stuff where I'm like, does this matter to the plot of the play? You know, could we have just mentioned this in a line or two and been done with it? Did it really need pages and pages of, let's talk about this war that's going on? I don't know. Was it necessary? It just seemed like a throwaway plot point that like we didn't necessarily need. But I did really enjoy, I think I really enjoyed Act 5 the most, which was like the ending. I really enjoyed when everything kind of came to a head and like people were like dying and so many more miscommunications were happening, and it was like really interesting. But yeah, I felt like it ended so suddenly. I'm gonna try to find the ending. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't super into the ending. I feel like Othello, like, he dies and then it's over. And I'm like, okay, great, wonderful, like, yeah. And I mean, I guess I understand that, but I feel like also there's so many other plays where, like, people die and then it kind of keeps going a little bit. And I feel like it didn't have that, like, wrap it all up ending. It just kind of, Othello dies, and the end. Yeah, I did actually really like Iago's wife, Emilia. She was probably, like, I really did like the way that, like, she kind of calls him out at the end as she, like, I don't, is it as she's dying or is it right before she dies? I can't remember. But I really did like that part. And I liked the way that she calls him out. If I can find anything good from that. And I did really like, I thought it was so weird, like, I couldn't totally understand her motives at first, like, why did she, like, okay, so Iago's continually asking her to steal this handkerchief from Desdemona, and for some reason, Emilia is like, no, and then Desdemona drops it, and she's like, okay. Like, I didn't understand that you know, like what her motives were there. Like, what did she think that Iago was going to do with the handkerchief? If her and Desdemona were such great friends, like, that didn't really make so much sense to me. I don't know, did it make any sense to you guys? It probably did. I, like, that didn't, like, why was she, like, he's asked me a few times before, and I didn't do it until now, you know? Like, what made now different? And, like, did she, like, have a change of heart at the end of, like, being like, I don't know. Right, like, I feel like when she's first introduced, she doesn't have so much substance, and then she kind of redeems herself a little bit in the end of being like, I mean, it's too little too late, but she does kind of try to redeem herself at the end, being like, you know, kind of owning up to everything that happened and calling him out and kind of removing the mask on Iago. Because, like, I feel like it was so weird. Like, I feel like Iago hits everyone over the head of, I'm not to be trusted, I'm not who I think, you know, I'm not who I seem to be, and no one says anything, no one notices, everyone's just like, oh, that's just Iago. Like, no one is like, oh, maybe we shouldn't believe Iago, maybe, you know, he's not who you know, maybe he's two-faced or whatever, and, like, but he says that he is, like, in the very beginning, he says it constantly, so I don't know. I just think that that's so funny that, like, he is so kind of honest of, like, with who he is as a person, and no one is like, maybe we should listen to him? Because in the beginning, he literally says, I am not what I am. Literally in the beginning. The heaven is my judge, not I, for love and duty. For when my outward action doth demonstrate the native act and figure of my heart, and then, but I will wear my heart upon my sleeve. I am not what I am. Stuff like that, like, just like, why didn't anyone listen to him, you know? I did mention this at the beginning, though. I really love this exchange between Desdemona's father and Iago, where he's like, thou art a villain, and he's like, you are a senator. Which I thought was kind of funny, you know. A little jab at politics, I guess. Iago can choke. He's so annoying. I do not like him. Not my favorite Shakespeare villain. Like I mentioned earlier, love me some Claudio action. I think Claudio is definitely my favorite villain, even though I don't think he's supposed to be a villain, like I said. Trying to see if I can find any more parts with Iago. In my copy, Iago's in dark purple. Also, I thought it was super interesting. I saw this part where it says, I'll pour this pestilence into his ear. And I'm like, does Shakespeare have a thing with pouring stuff into people's ear? Like, I know that this is metaphorically pouring something into his ear, but this happens in Hamlet too. Like, does Shakespeare have, like, a thing where he's like, the villain has to pour something, or at least metaphorically pour something into someone's ear? Like, it's very strange. Maybe it's a thing. Maybe Shakespeare has some, like, weird villain kink. I don't know. But I thought that was kind of funny that I, like, noticed that, and I underlined that. I think that is Act 2, Scene 3, line 376, where he says, I'll pour this pestilence into his ear, that she repeals him for her body's lust, and by how much she strives to do him good, she shall undo her credit with the more. So I thought that was kind of funny, that kind of gets, I don't know, was Othello written before or after Hamlet? I feel like I should know that. I feel like, for some reason, I feel like it was written after Hamlet, but I can't remember. But yeah. Also, I, like, screamed every time that Montanto was, mentioned in this play, because it's mentioned quite a lot. And I always think back to Much Ado About Nothing, which is my favorite, and how Benedict, Montanto. So yeah, I always think of it in the way that it's said in the movie, where I don't know. I just thought that was funny. It feels like there's a lot of like little references. I don't know if they were like supposed to be references, or if that was, even like a thought that crossed Shakespeare's head at all, that this is kind of a reference to Hamlet, or this is kind of a reference to Much Ado About Nothing. And I don't really know the timeline between like each play, so I can't really say for sure if they are or not, but I think it's kind of funny how like you can kind of see little connections between each play of like, oh, this like kind of, it's a little reference to this play. And so that was definitely a fun part of reading Othello. So yeah, also I think I mentioned, okay, so I really need to know how old Iago is. I mentioned this earlier. I still don't know. Like, I wonder, can you probably like Google that? Like, I don't know, does it say? Let's see, how old is Othello? Because I feel like Othello was much younger than Iago, but I might be wrong. Okay, I'm Googling it right now. I'm gonna see how old Iago was in Othello. Hopefully Google says something that makes any sense. What? Okay, I don't believe that. Google says that Iago's 28 years old, and I don't believe it at all. Maybe it's because in the audiobook that I was listening to, he sounded like he was literally 70 years old. So I just imagined a 70-year-old, but 28? And I don't believe it. I don't. I'm sorry. Iago, in my head canon, is like 75. I'm sorry. Like, I can't imagine him being 28 years old. That's only 4 years older than me. Iago is not 4 years older than me. He's got to be at least like 50 years older than me. Let's be real here. How old is Othello then? That's what I want to know. I need to know these things. I'm mad. Oh my gosh. Does it say? Are they the same age? It says no exact age for Othello is given in the play, but we have some clues. Iago, whom we know to be... Wait, does it say he's 28 years old? Is Othello older than Iago? What the frick? Did I read this play? Me and my one brain cell just flew out of... my brain cell flew out of my head. Right? I do not agree. Supposedly, I guess it says in the play that he's 28. I don't believe that. I am rioting right now. I'm gonna go out in the streets, and this is not acceptable. And it says, okay, so this is what it says on Google. And this is from study.com, so I don't know how accurate this is. But it says, for Othello, no exact age for Othello is given in the play, but we have some clues. Iago, whom we know to be 28 years old. So supposedly, we know that he's 28 years old, that Iago is. Maybe it's said in the play. I didn't see it. He refers to Othello as an old black ram. So, like, supposedly Othello's older. My whole brain just broke right there. Like, I have to sit with that for a second because I can't imagine Iago being 28 years old. I wonder if anyone has actually, like, drawn a picture of Iago. Now I want to know what I should be thinking of when I see him. If the bird comes up, I'm gonna scream. Oh, we love Iago from Aladdin. He's the best character. I love Iago from Aladdin. Oh, wait. Does What's-His-Face play Iago? Kenneth Branagh? So, like, seriously, I can't tell people apart, so it's really hard for me to know if that's, you know. Let's see. Trusty computer. I can't see that anyone has really painted a picture of Iago. It's mostly just people who have portrayed him, so. Okay, supposedly here's a picture of him, but he's old as hell. So I don't know. It is yet to be known. Supposedly he's 28. I disagree, clearly. What are you gonna do? That blows my mind. It does. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about besides me being blown away that Iago is 28? Because I think I've said basically everything that I wanted to say. I didn't talk too much about Desdemona, mostly because I don't know how I feel about her character. Yeah, I am with Jordan and Brandy. I disagree that he's 28. If someone can point to me in the text where it says that he's 28 years old, I will step back. I will say, okay, fine. I will concede. But I never noticed it in the play. So, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I only read through it once. Usually, when I only read through a play once, I miss so much stuff. But I feel like that's kind of a big thing to miss. Mainly because the entirety of when I was reading it, I thought of him as at least 75. So, yeah. Also, like I was saying about Desdemona, I don't know how I feel about her. It was hard kind of to get a read on her. She seemed like a pretty, like, typical dutiful wife. She seemed to be pretty straight edge. Like, she doesn't seem like the kind of person that, oh, shoot. I just remembered. I was going to bring this up because I thought this was super interesting. I noticed, and like I said, I have one brain cell. I noticed that in both Othello and Desdemona's names, they have, like, certain little words in there. Like, Othello has hell, you know, Othello, you know, hell. And then Desdemona has demon in her name, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But like I said, I have one brain cell. I've never read this before, so I thought that was super interesting. Anyway, I don't know how I feel about Desdemona. She's interesting. She's okay. I don't know if I'd say she's interesting. That just kind of came out. You know, she seems pretty typical. Not anything super standout-ish about her. Yeah. I was pretty underwhelmed with her character. Maybe I was just expecting more from her. Which might be my fault. But, yeah, she was pretty standard. Nothing too special. But, yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing. I thought of that last night, well, like, right before I went to bed. I'm like, huh, Othello has hell in his name and Desdemona has demon. Interesting. And then I went to bed. So, yeah, I think that's basically everything I wanted to say. Does anyone else have anything else they want to point out or add to the conversation about anything? Because other than that, I think I've literally said everything I wanted to say and more. We learned so much today about Iago, everyone's ages. That's just so... Now I'm wondering how old Desdemona is. She must be pretty young. Right! All she did was love her husband. She was dutiful. She was there at his frickin' beck and call, and she gets murdered for it. So fucked up. So fucked up. I can't even believe that. I think that's what makes me the angriest, is that Othello so easily believes that Desdemona is cheating on him, and then his reaction to that is, okay, she needs to die. Wonderful. I mean, literally that's the icing on the cake in this whole play, isn't it? I guess that's why it's a tragedy, is that she dies, Emilia dies, Othello dies, so many people die. So I think that's probably also the worst part of the play, is that she gets killed for just being awesome. So great. Wonderful. Yeah. I think that's it. Last call for any other thoughts, opinions. Yeah. I'm still reeling over Iago being 28. I don't want to believe it, but I mean, great. Oh, interesting. 21. Okay, so she's not so young. I feel like so many Shakespeare girls are so young, so I was just expecting her to be like maybe like 18 or 19. But yeah, that actually does. I think it makes more sense that she's like, I would say she's like 24, 25-ish, I want to say. I don't think she's super young. Like, from her characterization, at least in the play, she doesn't seem super young. Yes. That'd be great though, honestly. But then again, it seems like Othello's pretty old, so it'd be like, but also it'd be kind of cool. I don't know. I am so down for like just, you know, I want to see that production with Desdemona being a cougar. I want to see it, make it happen. I would love that because honestly, she seems like one of the more mature characters in the play. Othello, if he is in his late 30s, that's sad because he acts like he's a freaking teenager. He acts like he's like some, you know, teenager that's in some like little high school relationship that like the second things turn sour, it all goes downhill. And I'm like, oh, whatever. But he does not seem like he's almost 40. He seems a little too immature, and Desdemona seems pretty normal, or even slightly more mature than him, so that's really sad. She definitely did not deserve to die just because she was like, God, I don't know, it's just so stupid. Like, the whole conflict in this play is just absolutely, like, I can't even. I don't know. I feel like it would have gotten super heated though if we had read this one for class and we had, oh my gosh, I would have just been like screaming the entire time. But yeah, yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe they're kind of closer in age. So maybe he's like 31 and she's like 29, I want to say. I feel like they're pretty close in age. They seem to be, I don't know. We could we could talk about ages for them for literally ever. This is the one thing I don't like about some Shakespeare plays that like are pretty vague about the ages, because I'm like, how old are they? Like, I was wondering this too about Much Ado About Nothing, about like how old Beatrice and Benedict are. I want to know. I wish that like we had, I bet there's probably an age chart for like every Shakespeare character, because I feel like certain characters we get to like specifically know their ages, and then other characters are so vague and we never know. So yeah, I think that that's gonna be the end of the live show because I've been talking for over an hour. Great. This is gonna be saved on my channel, so you can go back and rewatch the beginning whenever you want to. I did talk a lot in the beginning, so if you missed that, if you came in at around like the half an hour mark, I did talk a lot for that first half an hour, so you might want to go watch that part as well, as I do talk quite a lot about my feelings on this play. And yeah, so thank you guys for joining. I'm so glad that like people actually came, because I felt so bad because I felt like literally awful on Friday, so I just could not get the energy to like get in front of a camera. So I didn't do that, and then I just felt bad because I kept postponing it. So I'm glad that people came and actually watched with me and talked, and we had this great conversation and learned so much, and I had a good time reading this play. I definitely want to reread it in the future. And I think that our April play is going to be Romeo and Juliet, because this is another one that I'm going to have a lot to say about. So this is going to be a long live show for Romeo and Juliet. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. So thank you guys for joining me in this conversation. It was so much fun, and I can't wait for Romeo and Juliet. And yes, great, wonderful. I will see you all later.